So Manchester United have recently been linked with Angelo, and it's reported that he will have a likely release clause in his contract come the summer of around £45 million, €50 million. And so the question I'm going to be answering by the end of this video is, considering Adam Wharton is likely to cost at least £75 to £80 million, maybe even more, is Angelo the next best alternative? Well, before we answer that main question, we first need to stylistically profile Angelo, looking at whether he has the attributes to fill the role that he would be required of in Ruben Amorim's system. And considering the recent tactical changes that we have seen Ruben Amorim implement at Manchester United in recent games, going a lot more direct, does this actually help or hinder the case for Manchester United signing Stiller? Before then, of course, analysing Stiller in comparison to Wharton, looking at the similarities and differences, and also how he compares to other options on the market such as Lamine Camara and Elliot Anderson. But first of all, let's just start off by stylistically profiling what type of central midfielder Angelo Stiller actually is. Well, I do like to use Football Manager terms just because I think they do a really good job of categorising players into specific tactical roles, setting out the responsibilities of this player in and out of possession, enabling you to compare whether their skill set suits that role. And for me, it would be pretty obvious to categorise Stiller as something like a deeper line playmaker or a regista. However, even though it isn't a Football Manager role, I do think that Stiller fulfills the criteria of being what is known as a metronome, which is essentially just a central midfielder which operates in deeper areas of the pitch during the possession phase, usually in the middle third, with the main responsibility of keeping the tempo high in play, switching the direction of the attack, but also being able to control the tempo of play, either being able to inject pace into the attack when needed, or take pace out of the attack in order to slow down the tempo of the game, thereby allowing him to alter the team's game state between ball progression or ball retention depending on what is needed at that point in the game. Now, how exactly does Stiller compare at doing this to Adam Wharton, and is this even what Manchester United currently need? But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season, with OK Jersey also allowing you to pick up high quality football shirts from just £15, plus free shipping across Europe for all orders over £45. They sent me over these new release alternative Manchester United jerseys from this season, as well as a long sleeved retro home shirt from the 92-93 season, with Cantona 7 on the back, alongside this Nuno Gomez Benfica shirt from the 97-98 season as well. If you use code ALANTIS at checkout, you'll get a discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. Now, whilst I have described Stiller as a metronome, which is a role he certainly can play, I do think his skill set allows for a lot more creativity than simply circulating the ball in deeper areas of the pitch. And this is evident both from the eye test but also from the statistical analysis. See, when watching him play, the first thing you'll notice is how intentional he is with playing through the centre of the pitch, specialising in use that disguise technique, shaping like he's going to play a pass on the outside of a player before closing his hips on the ball and being able to thread an incisive midfield splitting pass to work the ball in behind the opposition's midfield line. And he can do this in two different ways, either via quick short passes, being what is known as a connector in a short passing pattern of play, but he's also able to do this via a slower, methodical and more patient approach, holding on to the ball, excelling when it comes to his composure when baiting the pressure, waiting for the opposition player to make a move, vacate space, and then being able to take advantage of this with one of those incisive passes through the centre. And when it comes to his ability to progress the ball forward via his passing, he's genuinely one of the best central midfielders in world football. I think the eye test shows this clearly, with one game that comes to mind being against Real Madrid last season, when he was absolutely fantastic at being a connector via shorter passing sequences, knitting together moves and being able to play through the centre of Real Madrid's central midfield, but is arguably even more evident statistically. When we compare Stiller against all other midfielders in the top 7 leagues last season, at least domestically anyway, you can see just how impressive his output looks. He ranks in the top 2% for his progressive passes completed and his passes into the final third, as well as the top 6% for the volume of passes that he completed into the penalty area. In a similar fashion to Adam Wharton, Angelo Stiller is far more reliant on his progressive passing for his overall progressive actions compared with his carrying, which we're able to see because he ranks significantly lower for his progressive carries and his carrying frequency, though he still ranks above the median for his progressive carries, and even though his carrying frequency is well below the median, this is what you would expect given he's more of a dictator of the play, someone who's focusing on their passing rather than driving the ball forward into space. But it's also when it comes to their passing where we're able to see our first clear difference between the skill sets of Stiller and Wharton and how this would affect the roles that they would play in the Manchester United midfield. And it comes down to their pass completion rates, as whether it's for his progressive passes, his long passes, or his short passes. Like his progressive passing rates, Angelo Stiller's pass completion rates are similarly impressive, up there with the best in the world. However, when we look at Adam Wharton's pass completion rates, we can see that he doesn't just rank lower, but significantly lower, and you can clearly see that this is a part of Adam Wharton's game that he is going to have to improve. And this is why at the moment I'd probably categorise Adam Wharton as more of a deeper line playmaker rather than a metronome, and that's because whilst Adam Wharton is incredible when it comes to creating from deeper positions, being one of the best ball progressing threats from central midfield, whether this is incisive passes between the lines or long switches of play, when it comes to his ability to dictate the tempo, circulate the ball efficiently, and just enable his team to gain control of the game, I don't think at this point in his career Adam Wharton has the necessary mental attributes to be able to consistently do this throughout a Premier League season, particularly in big games, whereas Angelo Stiller would be absolutely perfect for this, as both the eye test and the statistical analysis shows. And so that's a key difference between Stiller and Wharton. However, another similarity between the two is their creativity further up the pitch in the final third, not just in terms of progressing the ball into dangerous positions in and around the penalty box, but also when it actually comes to creating chances as well. With Stiller, like Wharton, ranking in the 90th percentiles for most of these important creative metrics, with their expected assist rate specifically showing their ability to create chances even from a deeper central midfield position. And this is also a key asset of Lamine Camara as well, with all three of those central midfielders having the skill sets to eventually evolve into playing that regista role, which I would define as a combination between a deeper line playmaker and a metronome. Whilst Adam Wharton at this point in his career is more of a deeper line playmaker, someone who's going to be able to create chances and progress the ball into dangerous positions from deeper areas, but not necessarily someone who's going to be able to dictate the tempo of the game, at least in big games anyway. However, Angelo Stiller and Lamine Camara to a lesser degree definitely have the ability to do both, combining these roles of a deeper line playmaker and a metronome, becoming a regista, with these three roles giving a pretty good description about the differences between different type of creative central midfielders. And so on the surface at the moment, Angelo Stiller doesn't just look like the next best alternative to Wharton, but he looks like someone who could be better value for money. However, defensively is where it could swing to Wharton and even Lamine Camara and Elliot Anderson as well, and that's down to physicality and athleticism. As of the four players, Angelo Stiller is definitely the weakest when it comes to his physicality, but also his speed across the ground. Now don't get me wrong, he's certainly not slow or someone who's going to get dominated physically, even in the Premier League, but I just think that Elliot Anderson, Lamine Camara and Adam Wharton as well just have that bit of tenacity and aggression and acceleration when they're moving into challenges that enables them to get to loose and second balls a bit quicker, resulting in them being high volume ball winners when it comes to putting in tackles. However, an area of Stiller's game which is massively underrated is his anticipation and defensive positioning, with his mental attributes definitely making up for his lack of physical attributes, and you can see this clearly here. What we can see is that whilst he does rank below the median for his ball winning metrics, when it comes to his completion rates, he actually looks surprisingly impressive, ranking in the top 8% for the percentage of defensive duels he wins, as well as just inside the top 20% for his interceptions adjusted for possession. And so what this shows is that defensively, whilst Angelo Stiller certainly isn't ideal when it comes to covering large spaces, whether this is having to move across horizontal to cover the space out wide, or push up vertically using his acceleration in order to make the front line press more vertically compact, Stiller can be a valuable asset in a more passive pressing system, where he's got players in closer proximity and he's less likely to get isolated in massive spaces. Now in regards to how this would fit into Ruben Amorim's system, if you're looking at Amorim's system last season, when United was still building out from the back, but still relying on a lot of low probability vertically direct passes from the wide centre-backs and goalkeeper, requiring Stiller to do a lot of vertical runs between the defensive and middle third, then he's obviously going to struggle, as he is if you continue to press so aggressively in a 5-2-3 shape where the wing-backs often are disconnected from the front three's pressure, which then often leads to central midfielders with massive amounts of space to cover. Once again, Stiller is not going to be ideal for this, but if you have been watching my recent game analysis videos, specifically the one on Mbeumo's goal against Liverpool, which will be linked in all the usual places, you'll already be aware that at least temporarily for this season, I'm not sure whether this will continue into next year or next season, Amorim seems to have abandoned the build-up phase altogether, no longer even dropping the wide centre-backs deep, and instead going directly long from the goalkeeper, pushing the back line and midfield line higher up the pitch, meaning that Stiller is not going to have to do those vertical runs when United attempt to play out of the back. Their players are deeper, they go long, and there's going to be a lot of turnovers, requiring a greater emphasis on speed across the ground, physicality, and overall athleticism and ball-winning ability in the centre of midfield. If Amorim was to continue with this pragmatic style of play, I could actually see Stiller being a better option than either Kamara or Elliot Anderson. And this is because when United are going long and looking to win the loose or second balls, they're regaining possession in the middle third. And when it comes to this phase of play, Angelo Stiller might be one of the best central midfielders in world football. As I said, he's fantastic at playing through the centre of the pitch, controlling the tempo, but also being able to play a kind of quarterback role, dropping into a deeper position where he's able to receive the ball, before he's then able to hold on to the ball, wait for the right movement ahead of him, before then picking out a run with a long pass from a deeper position. And as the statistical volume and completion rate of Stiller's long passing shows, this is one of his best attributes, and it's also an attribute that would work particularly well with someone like Bryan Mbeumo, just as we've seen with him and Bruno Fernandes. And so in conclusion, at this point in time, it's pretty hard to come to an accurate conclusion about which style of central midfielder would be best for Manchester United, simply because we don't really know if Amorim's going to be sticking with this more pragmatic approach, or whether he does eventually want to revert back to that previous ball progression strategy. And so this is why, if we just factor out price for the minute, Adam Wharton would be my primary target ahead of Stiller, Kamara and Elliot Anderson, because he's able to combine what Stiller offers in terms of his incisive and creative passing from deeper positions, alongside having the athletic, physical and ball-winning attributes that we see with Kamara and Elliot Anderson. Now, like Stiller and Wharton, both Kamara and Anderson do have the progressive passing ability to be able to thread incisive passes with disguise through the centre of the pitch, as well as a range of passing to be able to switch play from deep as well. Similarly to the other two, Kamara does have the chance creating ability from deeper positions that we don't yet see with Elliot Anderson, and so if you did want a central midfielder with a similar stylistic profile to both Wharton and Stiller, you would go with Kamara. Stiller does slightly edge Kamara in terms of what he offers in possession, but Kamara is significantly quicker across the ground, more physical in duels, and overall a higher volume ball winner as well. And so in terms of who is the best stylistic match for United's current central midfielders, given that Ugarte is a front foot ball winner, someone who's going to step out of the midfield line and often leave his central midfield partner isolated in the centre, just because that's how Amorim wants to press, Kamara is definitely going to be a better stylistic fit for Ugarte compared with Stiller, and I'd pretty much say that for all of United's other central midfield options as well, simply because Mainu, Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro, ideally in that midfield double pivot, in the 5-2-3 defensive shape moving to a 3-4-3, do need a central midfielder alongside them who has greater athleticism, physicality and speed across the ground. And so when comparing the skill sets of Kamara and Stiller, unless United were going to sign another central midfielder such as maybe Edison or Agume, I think you'd have to go with Lamine Kamara as the better alternative to Adam Wharton. So let me know if you agree with my analysis. Who would you prefer, Lamine Kamara or Angelo Stiller as the alternative to Adam Wharton, or maybe also Elliot Anderson? And if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. I'll leave a link in the description and comment section below. And if you do want to sign up to my Patreon to get access to any of the plot graphs, circle charts, unreleased videos or articles, you can sign up for a 7-day free trial, which will be linked on the end screen now as well.